The ship was dead. Kira Vasquez knew this before she even opened her eyes. The familiar hum of the engines was gone. The air recyclers had stopped their quiet breathing. Everything was silent in a way that space should never be silent. She floated in the darkness of her broken cockpit, blood drifting from a cut on her forehead in tiny red spheres. The last thing she remembered was the flash of light. Then nothing. Now there were voices. Strange voices that clicked and hissed in languages she had never heard before. A metal claw punched through the hull of her ship. Then another. The wall peeled open like paper and bright light flooded in. Kira raised her hand to shield her eyes. Shapes moved in the light. Tall shapes, wrong shapes. Things with too many arms and eyes that glowed in colors she could not name. "Still alive," one of them said. The words came through some kind of translator, flat and without feeling. "Usable." Kira tried to fight. She always tried to fight. But her body was broken from the crash, and there were too many of them. They pulled her from the wreckage like a farmer pulling a vegetable from the ground. They did not care if it hurt. She was not a person to them. She was cargo. She passed out again as they dragged her through the airlock of their ship. When Kira woke up, she was in a cage. The cage was small, just big enough for her to sit with her knees pulled to her chest. The bars were made of some kind of energy that buzzed when she touched them. Around her, in rows that stretched further than she could see, were other cages, other prisoners. She had never seen aliens before. Now she saw hundreds. Some were huge, covered in scales and armor that looked like it could stop bullets. Some were small, with many legs and eyes that watched everything. Some looked almost like animals from Earth. Most looked like nothing she had ever imagined. All of them looked afraid. A door opened somewhere. Heavy footsteps echoed through the prison. The other prisoners went quiet. Some of them pressed themselves against the backs of their cages, trying to get as far away from the walkway as possible. Kira did not move. She watched. The creature that walked down the row of cages was tall, taller than any human. It had 4 arms and skin the color of old rust. Its eyes were black and empty, like holes cut into its face. It wore fine robes decorated with symbols she did not understand. Behind it walked a smaller creature. This one carried a device that projected light and images into the air. The tall one stopped in front of Kira's cage. "This is the new one?" it asked. "Yes, Arena Master Thelvox," the smaller one said. "Captured from a damaged vessel in the outer shipping lanes. Species is Terran, female, young adult by their standards." Thelvox leaned closer to the bars. Kira did not look away. She met his empty black eyes with her own brown ones. "Terran," Thelvox repeated. The word seemed to amuse him. "I have seen Terrans before. Weak creatures, no claws, no venom, no armor. They die quickly." "Should I place her in the first round of tomorrow's games?" the assistant asked. Thelvox made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Yes, put her against the Vrexian Spinehound. It has not lost in 340 fights. It will be a quick death. The crowd enjoys quick deaths sometimes." He turned to leave, then stopped. He looked back at Kira one more time. "Do you understand what is happening to you, Terran?" he asked. Kira said nothing. "You are in the Crimson Spiral Arena," Thelvox continued, "the greatest death sport in this sector of the galaxy. Billions watch our broadcasts, trillions bet on the outcomes. And you, little Terran, are tomorrow's entertainment." Still, Kira said nothing. "Nothing to say." Thelvox tilted his head. "No begging? No crying? The others always beg." Kira finally spoke. Her voice was calm and flat. "What would be the point?" Thelvox stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed again and walked away. His assistant hurried after him. "Strange creature," the assistant said. "Most prisoners are screaming by now." "She is in shock," Thelvox replied. "She will scream tomorrow when the Spinehound tears her open. They always scream at the end." But Thelvox was wrong. Kira was not in shock. She was thinking. When night came, or what passed for night in this place, Kira lay down on the floor of her cage and closed her eyes. Around her, other prisoners moaned and cried. Some prayed to gods she had never heard of. Some beat against their cages until their hands bled. Kira slept. It was not because she was not afraid. She was afraid. Fear sat in her chest like a cold stone. But fear was just a feeling. Feelings did not help you survive. Rest helped you survive. Food helped you survive. Clear thinking helped you survive. Her grandmother had taught her this, back on Earth, during the hurricane seasons that hit their coastal home every year. Back when the power would go out, and the water would rise and the wind would scream like a living thing. Fear is a luxury, her grandmother used to say. Save it for when you are safe. Right now we survive. Kira slept deeply and well. Her body began to heal. Her mind began to plan. In the cage next to her, a creature with 6 eyes watched her sleep. It had been in the arena for 2 weeks. It had seen many prisoners come and go. It had never seen one sleep on their first night. "What are you?" it whispered in the darkness. Kira did not answer. She was dreaming of Earth, of running through forests as a child, of climbing mountains that did not want to be climbed, of swimming in oceans full of things with teeth. Earth had been trying to kill her since the day she was born. Everything on our planet was always trying to kill everything else. Humans had survived not because they were the strongest or the fastest or the most deadly. They had survived because they refused to stop. Tomorrow she would fight a creature that had killed 340 opponents. Tomorrow she would become number 341, or she would not. Either way, tonight she would sleep. In his private chambers, high above the arena floor, Thelvox reviewed the betting numbers for tomorrow's games. The Terran was listed at the bottom of the board. No one was betting on her. The odds of her survival were calculated at less than 1%. He smiled and poured himself a drink. He had run this arena for 300 years. He had seen every kind of creature fight and die on his sands. He knew exactly how tomorrow would go. The Spinehound would charge. The Terran would freeze. The Spinehound would kill her in under a minute. The crowd would cheer. The bets would pay out. Everything would continue as it always had. He had no way of knowing that he was about to be very, very wrong. The arena was bigger than Kira had expected. It was a vast circle of sand surrounded by walls too high to climb. Above the walls, thousands of seats rose into the air, filled with aliens of every shape and color. Giant screens floated in the sky, showing her face to the crowd. She looked small on those screens, small and soft and weak. The gate on the other side of the arena began to open. The crowd roared with excitement. They knew what was coming. The Vrexian Spinehound came out of the darkness like a nightmare made real. It was the size of a horse but built like a wolf. Its body was covered in black spines that clicked and rattled as it moved. Its mouth was full of teeth that curved backward like hooks. 4 red eyes fixed on Kira, with the focus of a creature that had killed many, many times before. High above in his viewing box, Thelvox leaned forward in his seat. His assistant stood beside him with a tablet, ready to record the time of death. 20 seconds, Thelvox predicted. Maybe 30 if she runs. The Spinehound charged. It was fast. Faster than anything Kira had ever seen. The sand exploded beneath its claws as it crossed the arena in heartbeats. Kira did not run. She watched. She waited. At the last possible moment, when those hooked teeth were close enough to touch, she moved. She stepped to the side. Not far. Just enough. The Spinehound shot past her, carried by its own speed. It tried to turn, but Kira was already moving. She jumped onto its back, wrapping her arms around its thick neck. The creature thrashed and spun. Its spines cut into her arms and legs. Blood ran down her skin in hot rivers. She did not let go. The Spinehound slammed its body against the arena wall, trying to crush her. She held on. It rolled in the sand, driving its spines deeper into her flesh. She held on. It bucked and twisted and screamed in rage. She held on. 4 minutes passed. The crowd had gone silent. No one had ever seen anything like this. The Spinehound's movements became slower. It was not built for long fights. It was built for quick kills. Its muscles began to burn. Its hearts began to struggle. Kira squeezed tighter. 5 minutes. 6. 7. The Spinehound fell to the sand. Its legs kicked weakly. Its red eyes began to dim. Kira kept squeezing until it stopped moving entirely. Then she let go and stood up. Blood covered her body. Deep cuts marked her arms and legs. She swayed on her feet but did not fall. She looked up at Thelvok's viewing box. She said nothing. She did not need to. The silence in the arena lasted for 10 long seconds. Then somewhere in the crowd, someone began to cheer. Others joined in. Soon the whole arena was shaking with the sound. Thelvox did not cheer. He stared at the screen showing the Terran's face. She should be dead. She should have been dead in the first 20 seconds. How? His assistant whispered. Thelvox had no answer. They put Kira back in her cage. Medical drones treated her wounds. She slept for 12 hours, then ate everything they gave her, then slept again. Round 2 came 2 days later. They sent 3 Kathrani hunters against her, small, fast creatures with poison claws. She killed them by making them fight each other, staying just out of reach until they began attacking anything that moved, including their partners. Round 3 was a Goroth beast, huge, armored, slow. She ran circles around it for an hour until its heart gave out from exhaustion. Round 4 was an insectoid warrior with blades for arms. It cut her badly across the stomach before she managed to blind it with thrown sand and crush its head with a rock. Round 5 was a pack of 6 razor wolves from a moon she had never heard of. She climbed a pillar in the center of the arena and dropped onto them one by one, breaking their necks with her bare hands. Round 6 was a creature made of living acid. It burned her skin wherever it touched her. She led it under a water pipe, broke the pipe open, and diluted the creature until it could no longer hold itself together. After each fight, Kira returned to her cage. She treated her wounds as best she could. She ate. She slept. She stretched her muscles and kept them ready. The other prisoners began to watch her differently. At first, they had looked at her with pity. Another victim. Another quick death. But now they looked at her with something else. Something that might have been wonder or hope. The 6-eyed creature in the cage next to her finally spoke to her again. "How do you do it?" it asked. "How do you keep surviving?" Kira thought about the question for a moment. "I do not know how to do anything else," she said. "But you are hurt. You are bleeding. Any other creature would have died from those wounds." Kira looked down at her body, the cuts and burns and bruises that covered her skin. On Earth, these would be serious injuries. Here they seemed to be something more. "My body knows how to heal," she said. "It has had a lot of practice." Thelvox was no longer smiling when he reviewed the fight recordings. He had his scientists analyze everything about the Terran. Her blood, her bones, her muscles, the way she moved and fought and thought. The report they gave him made his 4 hands tremble. "She comes from a Class 12 Deathworld," the lead scientist explained. "A planet with high gravity, extreme weather, and millions of species all competing to kill each other. Her people evolved to hunt by chasing prey until it died from exhaustion. They can run for days without stopping. They can survive wounds that would kill 94% of known sentient species. Their bodies heal damage that would be permanent for others." "She is a monster," Thelvox said quietly. "No," the scientist corrected. "She is average for her species, a healthy, adult, human female. Nothing special by their standards." Thelvox looked at the screen showing Kira sleeping peacefully in her cage. 6 fights, 6 victories, wounds that would have killed most champions, and she was sleeping like a child after a long day of playing. "Nothing special," he repeated. For the first time in 300 years, the arena master felt afraid, but he could not show fear. He could not let the crowd see that he was losing control. He needed to kill this Terran. He needed to do it soon before she became a legend. He began planning round 7. It would be different this time. Harder, more deadly. He would throw everything he had at her until something finally worked. She was only human after all. Humans could die. He had seen it before. He just had to find the right way to kill her. Word spread across the stars like fire in dry grass. The news networks picked up the story first, then the gambling channels, then the entertainment feeds. Within days, the name of the Crimson Spiral Arena was on every screen in the sector. Not because of the champions, not because of the grand spectacles, because of the Terran. They called her the Deathworld Girl. The name started as a joke among the gamblers, but it stuck. Soon, billions of beings who had never heard of Earth were searching for information about this strange planet and its impossible creatures. What they found scared them. Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world. Only 15% of the galaxy's planets ranked that high. It was a world of extremes: burning deserts and frozen wastelands, oceans full of monsters and skies full of storms, earthquakes, volcanoes, hurricanes, floods, and everywhere, in every environment, creatures that evolved to kill and eat each other. The humans had risen to the top of this nightmare, not by being the fastest or the strongest, by being the most stubborn, the most adaptable, the most impossible to stop. Now one of them was fighting in the arena, and she would not die. Round 7 brought two opponents at once: a Creshi warrior and a Moldari strangler. They were both champions with dozens of kills each. They had never fought together before, but Thelvox hoped their combined strength would be enough. It was not. Kira spent the first 10 minutes of the fight staying between them, making them bump into each other, making them get in each other's way. When the Creshi swung its blade at her, she ducked, and the blade cut into the Moldari instead. When the Moldari tried to wrap its tentacles around her, she pushed the Creshi into its grip. By the end, the two champions were fighting each other. She finished off the survivor with a broken piece of the Creshi's own weapon. The crowd did not know how to react. They had come to watch death. Instead, they watched something else, something that looked almost like art. Rounds 8 through 11 followed the same pattern. Thelvox sent more opponents. He sent faster opponents. He sent opponents that worked together, trained to cooperate against a single target. Kira beat them all. She did not win through strength. She won through patience, through observation, through a strange kind of intelligence that the other species did not seem to possess. She watched her opponents before she fought them. She learned their patterns. She found their weaknesses, and she never stopped moving. Even when she was hurt, even when she was tired, even when any reasonable creature would have laid down and accepted death. She just kept going. Round 12 was different. Thelvox had stopped trying to kill her with opponents. Now he tried to kill her with the arena itself. The sand beneath her feet turned to ice as cold as deep space. Kira shivered but kept moving. Her skin turned blue. Her breath came out in white clouds. She wrapped her arms around herself and ran in circles to keep her blood flowing. The ice became fire. Jets of flame shot up from the ground without warning. She learned the pattern of the jets and danced between them. The air grew thin. Poison gas seeped through the walls. She tore a strip from her clothing and held it over her mouth, breathing through the cloth to filter out the worst of the toxins. Through it all, the crowd watched. They had stopped cheering for blood. Now they cheered for something else, for survival, for defiance, for this small, soft creature that refused to accept the death that everything in the universe seemed to be pushing toward her. After round 12, something changed in the prison. The other prisoners had always been silent and hopeless. They knew what the arena was. They knew there was no escape. They waited for their turn to die, and they prayed that it would be quick. But now they talked. They whispered to each other through the bars of their cages. They talked about the Deathworld girl, about what she had done, about what it might mean. The six-eyed creature in the cage next to Kira spoke to her again. "The others are talking about you," it said. Kira was doing stretches in her small space, keeping her muscles loose. "I know. They say you cannot be killed. They say you are some kind of demon from a hell world." Kira almost smiled. "I am just a human." "What is a human?" She stopped stretching and looked at the creature. It was thin and pale, with shaking hands and eyes that had lost all hope. It had been beautiful once, she thought, before this place broke it. "A human is a creature that does not know when to stop," she said. "We are not the strongest. We are not the fastest. We are not the smartest. But we do not stop. We cannot stop. It is not in our nature." "Why not?" Kira was quiet for a moment. She thought about Earth, about all the things that had tried to kill humanity over the millions of years of their evolution. The ice ages, the predators, the diseases, the disasters. All of it should have wiped them out. All of it had failed. "Because everything on our world was always trying to kill us," she said. "So we learned that giving up means dying, and we do not want to die." The six-eyed creature stared at her for a long time. Then slowly it stood up in its cage. It was the first time it had stood in days. Teach me, it said. Teach you what? Teach me how to not give up. Kira looked at the creature. Then she looked at the other cages around her, at the hundreds of prisoners waiting to die. She had been thinking only of herself, of her own survival. But now she began to think of something bigger. Tomorrow, she said, watch how I breathe before a fight. Watch how I stand. Watch how I move. And when it is your turn in the arena, remember what you saw. It was not much, it was not a plan, but it was something. And sometimes something was enough. In his viewing box, Thelvox watched the prison cameras. He saw the prisoners talking. He saw them looking at the Terran with something other than fear. He saw hope, and he knew that hope was the most dangerous thing in the universe. He had to end this. He had to kill her before she became something more than just a survivor, before she became a leader. Thelvox had run the Crimson Spiral Arena for 300 years. In all that time, he had never felt desperate. He had always been in control. The arena was his kingdom, and death was his loyal servant. Now death was failing him. The Terran was still alive. Worse than that, she was becoming famous. The viewing numbers for his arena had never been higher. Gamblers across the sector were losing fortunes betting against her. Some were making fortunes betting on her. He should have been happy. More viewers meant more money. More money meant more power. But Thelvox did not care about money anymore. He cared about winning. He cared about proving that he was still the master of this place, that he could still kill anything. Round 13 was his answer. He did not send living opponents this time. Living things could be tricked. Living things got tired. Living things made mistakes. He sent machines. 6 combat drones dropped from the ceiling of the arena. They were the best that money could buy. Their targeting systems could predict movement before it happened. Their weapons could cut through armor like paper. They had been programmed to kill, and they had never failed. Kira watched them come down. She had never fought machines before. She did not know their weaknesses. She did not know if they had weaknesses. The first drone fired. A beam of light shot toward her chest. She threw herself to the side, and the beam burned a hole in the sand where she had been standing. All 6 drones fired at once. Kira ran. She did not run in a straight line. She did not run in a pattern. She ran like a crazy person, changing direction without warning, jumping and rolling and spinning in ways that made no sense. The drones tried to predict her movements. Their systems calculated where she would be in 1 second, 2 seconds, 5 seconds. They fired at those spots. But Kira was not there. Humans, it turned out, were unpredictable. Their minds did not work like other minds. They made decisions based on feelings, on instincts, on random thoughts that came from nowhere. No computer could predict what a human would do next. Sometimes humans did not even know what they would do next. One by one, Kira got close to the drones. She grabbed their metal bodies and smashed them into each other. She ripped out their wires with her bare hands. She used the broken pieces of one drone to destroy another. When the last drone fell, Kira stood in a circle of sparking metal. Her hands were bleeding from the sharp edges. Her body was covered in burns from near misses. But she was alive. Round 15 brought the Gorvath War Champion. The Gorvath were a species bred for combat. They had 2 hearts, 4 arms, and skin like stone. Their war champions were the best of the best, trained from birth to kill in the arenas of 100 worlds. This one had never lost a fight. It stood 7 feet tall and looked at Kira like she was an insect. The fight lasted 3 hours. Kira could not hurt the Gorvath. Her fists bounced off its stone skin. Her kicks did nothing. Every weapon she picked up broke against its body, so she did not try to hurt it. She tried to tire it. She ran. She dodged. She stayed just out of reach, moving constantly, never stopping, never slowing down. The Gorvath chased her. It was stronger than her. It was faster than her in short bursts. But it could not keep up. Humans were persistence hunters. Their bodies were designed to run for hours, for days without stopping. They had sweat glands that kept them cool when other creatures overheated. They had lungs that could pull oxygen from the air more efficiently than almost any other species. The Gorvath did not have these things. After 2 hours, it was breathing hard. After 2.5 hours, it was stumbling. After 3 hours, its twin hearts gave out from exhaustion. It fell face first into the sand and did not get up. Kira stood over its body, also exhausted, also bleeding from a dozen wounds where the Gorvath had managed to hit her. But she was standing. Round 17 was Thelvox's final answer. He went to the darkest part of his collection, to the cage that no one was allowed to open, to the creature that he had kept as a last resort for 50 years, the Null Beast. No one knew where Null Beasts came from. Some said they were born in black holes. Some said they were mistakes made by ancient scientists. Some said they were demons from another dimension. Whatever they were impossible to fight. They absorbed light and sound. When a Null Beast entered a room, everything went dark and silent. You could not see it. You could not hear it. You could only feel it when it was already too late. The arena lights went out. The crowd gasped, then went silent as the sound disappeared too. On the screens, nothing showed, just blackness. In that blackness, Kira stood alone. She could not see anything. She could not hear anything. She was completely blind and deaf, but she was not helpless. Humans had more than two senses. They had touch and smell and taste. They had something else too, something harder to describe, a feeling in their gut that told them when something was wrong, when danger was close. Kira closed her eyes. There was no point keeping them open. She breathed slowly and focused on what she could feel. The air moved to her left. Something was there. She dove to the right. Something passed through the space where she had been standing. She did not know what it was. She did not need to know. For 10 minutes, she played this game, feeling the air, sensing the movement, dodging death by inches. Her hand touched something on the ground, a piece of metal from an earlier fight. Sharp, heavy. She waited. She felt the air move again. This time she did not dodge. She stabbed upward. The metal sank into something soft. There was a scream that she felt more than heard. The darkness began to fade. The sound began to return. The Null Beast lay on the sand in front of her. Its body was twisted and strange, like looking at something that should not exist. Her piece of metal was buried in what might have been its brain. It was dead. The lights came back on. The crowd saw Kira standing over the body of the creature that no one had ever survived. She was covered in something black. Blood, maybe, or something else. She looked up at Thelvox's viewing box. Then she yawned. It was not meant as an insult. She was just tired. So very tired. 17 rounds of fighting for her life. 17 rounds of wounds and pain and fear. But to the crowd, to Thelvox, to the billions watching across the galaxy, it looked like something else. It looked like she was bored. Thelvox felt his 4 hands shaking. He had nothing left. He had thrown everything at her, beasts and machines and monsters and the darkness itself. And she had yawned. He had one option left, one final plan. It would either kill her or destroy everything he had built. He no longer cared which. The announcement came at midnight. Thelvox's voice echoed through the prison, waking every prisoner from their sleep. His words were clear and cold and full of hate. Tomorrow there will be a grand execution. The Terran will face every prisoner in the holding cells. All 47 of you will enter the arena together. Only those who kill the Terran will be allowed to live. The prisoners looked at each other in the darkness. Then they looked at Kira. She was sitting in her cage with her eyes closed. She did not seem surprised. She had been expecting something like this. The 6-eyed creature spoke first. "They want us to kill you." "Yes," Kira said. "If we do not, we all die." "Yes. So what do we do?" Kira opened her eyes. In the dim light of the prison, they seemed to glow. Not with anger or fear, with something else. Something that looked almost like peace. "What do you want to do?" she asked. The creature was silent for a long moment. Then it stood up in its cage. It was taller than Kira remembered, stronger. The weeks of watching her fight had changed something in it. "I want to live," it said, "but not like this. Not as a slave. Not as entertainment for monsters who enjoy watching us die." "Then do not kill me," Kira said simply. But Thelvox is afraid. Kira stood up in her own cage. Her body was covered in scars from 17 rounds of combat. Her muscles were tight with exhaustion, but her voice was strong. "He is afraid because I have shown him something that he does not want to believe. something that he has spent 300 years trying to make people forget. What is that? Kira looked around at all the prisoners. They were all listening now, all watching, all waiting. That we can win, she said. Silence filled the prison. Then slowly, voices began to rise. First one, then two, then dozens. Prisoners who had not spoken in weeks began to talk. Prisoners who had given up hope began to remember what hope felt like. They talked all through the night. They made plans. They shared what they knew about the arena, about the guards, about the weaknesses in the system. By the time the artificial sun rose over the prison, they were no longer 47 separate victims. They were an army. The gates of the arena opened, and 47 prisoners walked out onto the sand. The crowd was the largest in the history of the Crimson Spiral. Billions were watching from across the galaxy. They had come to see the Deathworld girl finally die. They had bet trillions on the outcome. Kira walked at the front of the group. She was barely awake. 17 rounds of fighting had pushed her body to its absolute limit. Every step hurt. Every breath was an effort. But she kept walking. Thelvox watched from his viewing box. His 4 hands gripped the railing so hard that the metal bent. This was it. This was the end. 47 against 1. Even a human could not survive those odds. Then something strange happened. The prisoners did not attack Kira. They formed a circle around her, not to trap her, to protect her. The 6-eyed creature stepped forward and looked up at the viewing box. Its voice was carried by the arena's speakers to every corner of the galaxy. "We refuse," it said. Thelvox leaned forward. "What did you say?" "We refuse to fight her. We refuse to kill each other for your entertainment. We refuse to be your slaves anymore." The crowd went silent. This had never happened before. In 300 years of the arena, no group of prisoners had ever refused to fight. Thelvox's face twisted with rage. "Then you will all die. Guards, kill them all." The arena's defense systems came online. Weapons emerged from the walls. Guard drones flew down from the ceiling. Kira looked up at the viewing box. She was so tired, so very tired. But she had one more fight left in her. "Follow me," she said to the prisoners behind her, and she charged. The battle that followed would be remembered for centuries. Kira led the prisoners through the arena's defenses. She had been watching for 17 rounds, learning the patterns, finding the weak points. Now she used everything she had learned. They destroyed the weapon systems from the inside. They overloaded the guard drones by attacking them all at once. They broke through walls that had never been broken before. The arena's staff tried to stop them. Most of them ran when they saw what was coming. A tide of desperate creatures with nothing left to lose, led by a human who refused to die. In his control room, Thelvox finally understood that he had lost. He tried to run. He knew secret passages that no one else knew about. Escape routes that he had built for exactly this situation. But Kira was waiting for him. She stood alone in the corridor that led to his private ship. Her body was broken. Her arms hung at her sides. Blood dripped from wounds that should have killed her hours ago. But she was still standing. "Please," Thelvox begged. "I will give you anything. Money, power, a ship to take you anywhere in the galaxy. Just let me go." Kira looked at him for a long moment. This creature had killed thousands, millions maybe. He had turned death into entertainment and suffering into profit. "I am not going to kill you," she said. Relief flooded Thelvox's face. "Thank you. Thank you. I am going to do something worse." Kira stepped aside. Behind her, a crowd of freed prisoners filled the corridor. The 6-eyed creature was at the front. "I am going to let them decide what to do with you." The screams that followed were heard throughout the arena. Kira did not watch. She walked away, through corridors filled with freed prisoners and defeated guards, until she found a window that looked out at the stars. She had done it. Against all odds, against all reason, she had survived. Behind her, the prisoners were taking control of the arena. They were sending messages to every news network in the sector. They were transmitting records of every crime that had been committed in this place. The Crimson Spiral was finished, and with it, a message was being sent to every slaver, every arena master, every being who thought they could cage others for profit. Do not take humans. Do not underestimate them. Do not assume they will break just because everything is against them. Their world tried to kill them for 4 billion years. They won. 3 days later, Kira boarded a ship that would take her back toward Earth. The prisoners had given it to her as a gift. They had offered her more: leadership, power, a place in the new order they were building. She had refused. All she wanted was to go home. As the ship jumped into faster-than-light travel, Kira finally allowed herself to sleep. Not the tactical rest of a survivor. Not the careful naps of someone who might need to fight at any moment. Real sleep. Deep sleep. The sleep of someone who was, at last, free. She dreamed of Earth, of running through green forests under a blue sky, of rain on her face and wind in her hair, of all the things that had tried to kill her and all the ways she had survived. She smiled in her sleep. She was going home, and somewhere in the dark corners of the galaxy, her legend was just beginning.